Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. Today I wanted to talk to you about a spouse benefit that's often forgot about, not looked at, and not acquired until way after the eligibility is actually afforded to that spouse. So wanted to talk to you about that in this video, and I've done videos on this in the past, but this benefit pays out between there's a range and all kinds of different factors, just like service connection, disability compensation. There's, brackets, and then there's add-ons for children and so forth. So same thing with this. You're looking at probably anywhere between $1,562 all the way to, $3,388 or even more in some cases. So I wanted to just kind of go through it, give you a high-level overview, and give you an example of how it could break down as far as the monthly amounts concerned. So let's with, I don't know what that means. So with that, let's jump into it. Hit the thumbs up for me, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. I appreciate it. If you're not a member, consider joining. It does support the channel and it helps me to find you quicker in the comments. All right, so if you haven't guessed what benefit this is yet, this is dependency indemnity compensation, and I'm going to read you some pieces here through the VA's website. And you could Google search VADIC, and that should drive you to the VA's website as one of the first options in Google, and you could jump from there. All right, so jumping into it, about VADIC for spouses, dependents, and parents. Yes, you could qualify as a surviving spouse, a dependent, or a parent. So if you're the surviving spouse, child, or parent of a service member who has died in the line of duty, or the survivor of a veteran who died from a service-related injury or illness, you may be eligible, you may be able to get a tax-free monetary benefit called VA Dependency and Indemnity Compensation, VADIC. So here's the first nugget, right? And this is really, really important because, like with all of this stuff, we tend to, for whatever reason, self-segregate out of things. No, I don't qualify because of X, or I don't think I'm going to qualify because of Y. So here we see it says a veteran who died from a service-related injury or illness. So automatically we assume that we have to have died due to our service-connected condition as the cause of death. Now, let me shed a little light on that. What the VA is looking for, and what I've seen firsthand, I mean, they can always change how they view things, but what I've seen in the past, and what I've seen, again, firsthand, is when you have a death certificate, you have the cause of death, and you have a section for contributing cause of death. So it's kind of almost like secondary conditions. So what happens is we have the cause of death. That's what killed the veteran, right? Then you have the contributing causes of death, or cause of death, contributing cause or causes of the death. So many times, if it's just a natural occurrence, right? So let's say that you passed away of a heart attack, right? So you die of a heart attack. Now the cause of death is heart attack. Well, you're not rated for anything with your heart specifically, but you do have hypertension. Now, what happens is a lot of times those contributing causes of death will be left blank. So therefore, it's just you died of a heart attack and here's your death certificate and move on. You can get that death certificate amended and have them add hypertension, high blood pressure, as a contributing cause to the heart attack, which was the cause of death. And the VA views those things the same. So your died from a service-related injury or illness is not just the cause of death, it's actually the contributing causes of death. As long as it's labeled, notated on the death certificate, one of your service-connected conditions, you'll be good to go, at least from my experience. Now, let's move on through this. So I'm going to dive into the surviving spouse because that's the most common, but it is important to note that there are abilities for parents and children, dependents of surviving parents, surviving children, of the veteran who could also potentially qualify for dependency indemnity compensation. But again, for the purposes of this video, keeping it fairly simple, I'm just going to talk about the surviving spouse. So, eligibility. You may be eligible for VA benefits or compensation if you meet these requirements. Now, I'm going to dive into the dollar figures here in a second. I'm going to jump through this. One of these must be true. So one of these must be true of you, the spouse. You lived with the veteran or service member without a break until their death. Or you're separated. If you're separated, you were not at fault for the separation. And one of these must be true. You married the veteran or service member within 15 years of their discharge from the period of military service which the qualifying illness or injury started or got worse. Or number two, you were married to the veteran or service member for at least 1 year. Or you had a child with the veteran or service member. Most people tend to qualify under those last two. You were married for at least a year, and you had a child with the veteran or service member. Note, if you're remarried, you can receive or continue to receive compensation if one of these describes you. So, there are two buckets in which you as a surviving spouse can continue to receive DIC. Now, what that means is that if you don't meet this, you don't get to continue to receive it, right? So there's two ways to go here. So you get to continue receiving dependency indemnity compensation. And again, I'll jump into the rates in a minute. If one of these describe you, you remarried on or after December 16th, 2003, and you were at least 57 years of age or older at the time you remarried. So the key, if you got remarried after December 2003, you were at least 57 years of age when you did that. Then you get to continue receiving dependency indemnity compensation. The other is you remarried on or after January 5th, 2021. They made a change to the rules and they lowered the age to 55. So now you could remarry at the age of 55 or older after January 5th, 2021 and continue to receive dependency indemnity compensation. Evidence is the next section here, and it says you'll need to provide evidence with your claim showing that one of these descriptions is true of the veteran or service member. Evidence may include documents like military service records, doctor's reports, and medical test results. Now, let me throw this out there for those that are still watching. This is a really important benefit. The veteran does not have to have already had a service connection in place prior to the death. So in other words, veteran never went to the VA, was of the mindset of, I don't need to give it to somebody else, who cares? They're a Vietnam vet, they have hypertension, they had high blood pressure, and they died of a heart attack. Never saw the VA once. No service connections, nothing. You could, as a surviving spouse, provide documentation that they had high blood pressure, which is a presumptive condition for that Vietnam veteran who served in Vietnam or other Agent Orange affected area. You provide that information showing that they had hypertension. That creates that service connection for hypertension. You have hypertension listed on the death certificate as a contributing cause to death, which would be labeled in this example a heart attack. And now you're going to qualify, or in my opinion and what I've seen is you should qualify now for dependency indemnity compensation. That is a very important piece. Moving on. Provide evidence showing that at least one of these is true. The service member died while on active duty for training or inactive duty training, or the veteran died from a service-connected illness or injury, or the veteran didn't die from a service-connected illness or injury, but was eligible to receive VA compensation for a service-connected disability rated at total disabling for a certain period of time. What they're talking about on that last one is once a veteran is 100% for a period of 10 years, then they can pass away from anything. It doesn't matter. You don't need to show service connection on the death certificate. Veteran just needs to die, right? So when the veteran dies, after 10 years of being 100%, which if you're 100% rated, mark down that date so you know when that occurred, so that way you know what's going on as far as the 10-year time frame is concerned. So let's move on. If the veteran's eligibility was due to a rating of totally disabling, 100%, okay, 100%, they must have had the rating for at least 10 years before their death. Or there is a caveat to that. Since their release from active duty for at least 5 years immediately before their death. So basically it's that's the other option. Most people are going to be under the 10-year rule. Moving on, for at least 1 year before their death, if they were a former prisoner of war who died after September 30th, 1999. So if they were rated 100% for 1 year and they were a prisoner of war and they died after 99, that would be another caveat. So moving on, note, there's a notation, totally disabled or disabling means the veteran's injuries made it impossible for them to work. So that I don't like how they worded that. It includes TDIU 100%. So that's what that means. Okay, now moving on to the dollar figures here real quick for you. So the way that the rates work, I'm scrolling through it here. So surviving spouse, if you're the surviving spouse of the veteran, right, your monthly payment rate is $1,562.74. That's effective December 1st, 2022. This will be affected by COLA and it will jump up December 1st, 2023. You also may be eligible for added amounts based on certain factors. Find any descriptions in the table below that are true of you and add that amount to the $1,562, the $1,562. There is change, but I'm just rounding. So added amounts for surviving spouses. Let's see what those are here. All right. First one is the 8-year provision. The veteran had a VA disability rating of totally disabling, that's the 100%, or TDIU, the unemployability, for at least 8 full years leading up to their death. If they were rated for 8 years, then you get something called, or that's part of it, and you were married to the veteran for those same 8 years. So if you were married for those same 8 years, that the veteran was rated 100% for 8 years or receiving TDIU, you get what's called the 8-year provision, and that is $331 and change. So that's a great add-on. Moving on, if you have a disability and you need help with regular daily activities like eating, bathing, and dressing, you may qualify for aid in attendance. That's an additional $387 and change. If you can't leave your house due to a disability, you could receive a housebound allowance. That's an additional $181 and change. If you have dependent children under the age of 18, you could receive additional amounts, $332 for the first 2 years after the veteran's death, and another $387 for each eligible child. Now, if you're the surviving spouse of a veteran, your monthly rate would start at the $1,562.74. Then for each additional benefit you qualify for, you would add those amounts from that table. Now, here is an example of the $3,388 per month. Let's say that your monthly rate is the $1,562. Your first child under the age of 18 is $387. Then your next child is $387. Your 8-year provision is $331. Your aid in attendance is $387. And then you have the transitional benefit for the first 2 years after the veteran's death, which is an additional $332. Now, there's change in there, so it actually if you added all those up, I'd be short by $1 or something. But the change pieces in there rounded out to $3,388 per month. Now, remember, the 2-year transition benefit after the veteran's death will go away after the first 2 years. So then you would subtract that out after 2 years, the $332. And this is that transitional benefit is when you have children. So minusing that out will drop it to $3,056 per month, which is a fantastic benefit. So With that, we'll go ahead and conclude it there. Just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of the dependency indemnity compensation and how it works, VADIC. So with that, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks so much. Have a great one. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.